Digital audio health by Cymatrax.
Welcome to the Rhonda Grant Show with your host, Rhonda Grant. If you believe that there is more to life than what you see right now and you want to find out more, listen in as her guests share their journey and their extraordinary experiences. Now, here is your host, Rhonda Grant.
Welcome to the Rhonda Grant Show. Sometimes the universe has a way of placing people or obstacles in your path to help guide and direct you on your mission. Listen in as we discover the path my guest has traveled. Has she been inspired by a calling, crafted her journey, or a bit of both? I invite you to embrace the conversations and to use them to help you to recognize if this is happening in your life. Our guest today is Aideen ni Riada, intuitive voice coach and singer. Aideen is an intuitive voice coach, mentor, and singer. She can help you to uncover the hidden treasure within your unique voice. Welcome to the Rhonda Grant Show, Aideen ni Riada.
Thank you so much for having me, Rhonda. It's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you so much. We've been trying to get together for quite some time, so it's really nice to have you on the show. Can you give our listeners a little bit of a background of how you ended up choosing voice or singing as a profession?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yes.
I've thought about this a lot. Voice to me is a big part of what I enjoy doing. So when I was asked, was I a singer as a younger person, I would say, oh, I love singing, but I would never say I am a singer. I would say I love singing. Mm-hmm. And I actually loved performance as well. And I wanted to do acting straight out of school. I loved being seen in a creative way and allowing myself to be creative in a performance perspective. But when I was about 28, someone asked me what was my dream. And I said, well, I want to be a singer, but I can't do that. So this mental block I had over claiming singing as part of my identity was blocking me from pursuing anything to do with music, really. And once I heard myself saying that, that particular time, I started acting as though it was possible, even though in my mind that neural pathway was still saying, I can't do that. I went back to study jazz vocal performance in my 30s. And that's when I began this career related to voice. Previous to that, I had done many other kinds of jobs.
Okay.
I was an airline stewardess for Japan Airlines, would you believe?
Wow.
And I flew to Japan and back for 5 years and gave people their meal and spoke in Japanese. And I loved languages. So languages were a big part of what I did during my university years and, my career when I worked as cabin crew. But I did other jobs. I worked in health stores. I worked as an image consultant. And I kind of struggled because I wasn't really in my lane until I started working for myself and combining voice with my interest in psychology and helping people to find confidence through using voice. So that was part of the journey, I guess. It took a while to get there because I didn't have the confidence in myself. And one Christmas, I had just been in a show in my local town. I was in a show called White Christmas, and I was Betty, and one of the two sisters, and I enjoyed it so much, but I wasn't doing anything with music in my everyday life. It wasn't my career at that time. And I just said, dear universe or dear God, help me to do something with music, because I really want to be using music as part of my time, like that be part of the time I spend on a daily basis. And within 3 or 4 weeks, I had a divine inspiration that said, teach adults a singing workshop. So that started it all.
So when you asked for divine guidance and this came to you, did you want to do that? Did you think, oh yeah, this is right, I'm going to take hold of this, and I've got
No.
my answer? How did you respond to that?
Well, it was interesting, and I really understood that it wasn't my own head coming up with this answer, because I actually did not want to do that. When
Okay.
I was asking the question, I think I was asking to sing at weddings or to have a career as a performer,
Mm-hmm.
was really what my preference in my mind was. But when I got that inspiration, I knew it wasn't me speaking, because I wasn't that keen on the idea. I didn't know how to go about doing that. I wasn't sure how it would be received. There was no assurance, or kind of, I didn't feel like, oh yeah, that's exactly, that's going to be a success. I didn't feel anything like that. But because I had been doing a lot of meditation around that time, I had started to trust little nudges that I was getting in my life. And because I recognized it as a nudge, I said, I'll try that. I decided to test that idea rather than make a decision at the beginning that said, where I got to say yes or no. It was more like, let's see. And I had a friend who used to do a what they call in Ireland a session. So it was a music session for amateur musicians who wanted to sing, and they would just get up and sing at like an open mic, but
Yeah.
for people who don't normally sing. Anybody could get up and sing. The local chemist, the local, anybody who wanted to sing would get up and sing.
Yeah.
So he had been doing that for a number of months, and when people from that group heard what I was doing, they were very interested in it. And so I had a ready-made group of people for my first session, and it went really well. And I surprised myself. I enjoyed it, and I decided I would do it again a month later. And I did. I did a shorter workshop the second time for just men.
Mm-hmm.
And I did one workshop a month for about 6 months. And once I got to that point, I started teaching people one-on-one. And it kind of gained momentum. The name for my business was Confidence in Singing. And I felt that was given to me as a concept as well. And I had a business name, and I had a Facebook page, and it went from strength to strength in my local area. So I was really happy.
Mm-hmm. So the lesson here is that you asked for divine guidance, and the answer that you received was not what you were looking for. And a lot of people will discard that direction and go, no, I don't mean that, right?
Yes.
I mean something, I want divine guidance, but I want the divine guidance to something I want to do, not what the divine guidance is going to tell me what I should do. And so it took a lot of trust on your part, because you have to surrender. There's a surrendering that you need to do. But I find what's fascinating in your story is that all of these things started to, when you listened and you took action and participated in the things that came up for you, everything just started to fall into place.
It was phenomenal. And it was phenomenal, the change within me. Because as I said, I wanted to perform. And I think the reason I wanted to perform was because I wanted to be seen for the part of me that I loved, the creative part of me, that part of me that I feel is me. And I was, as I said, working in the airline industry for 5 years. Nobody even knew I sang. I did a karaoke night now and again. And so my identity and who I was being hidden. And because I wasn't bringing my true values and enjoyment of music into my everyday life. But when I started teaching, a shift happened where I didn't need to be seen as a singer. I didn't need to be on the stage myself. When I created a platform for someone else to do it, I started to feel a very deep sense of fulfillment. And at one event, I did a workshop, and one of the participants knew like that I sang and had been at maybe a few things that I'd sung at. And at the end of this 1 day workshop, she said, "But Aideen, you didn't sing." And I didn't normally sing much. Like, I mean, I would sing a little to teach a song or something. But at the end of that, I realized, it came to me. I said to her, "This for me is like I'm the baker, and I've baked this gorgeous cake. And I've given each of you a slice, and I've enjoyed watching you all eat it." And that was the pleasure that I got from that. And that was a point of me maturing, actually, in myself. And I think even taking that step of trusting that divine guidance was me becoming more mature as well. Because previous to that, whether the guidance was from somewhere outside of me, or divine inspiration, or from a trusted family member, I always mistrusted other people's guidance. If it didn't come, I didn't have a good track record of listening to people's wisdom. I wanted my idea to be my idea. I wanted to instigate things. And I found it difficult to trust other people would have an idea that might be also good for me. And I was very black and white in that's a yes, that's a no. So when I had that inspiration and I tested it, but you don't need to say, "Yeah, that's a great idea," and to put all your eggs in that basket. When we're given an inspiration, all we're actually being asked to do is test it and try it. And through following that small thread of inspiration, I was led to, and I enjoyed it, and I realized I wanted this, and it's brought me back to myself. And I do perform more now. I have music on YouTube, but it was like that journey. That journey is what gave me a foundation for me to perform. And it probably wouldn't have happened at all the other way around, because having this base of, even my students are my fans, you know what I mean? They're people that are interested. So it's like, and I really have a strong belief in well-wishers. So me serving others in that way created this lovely pot of people who cared about me and appreciated me for the help that I'd given them. And they became supporters then in other things that I wanted to do.
You had more positive energy around you. And I think here also what you're talking about is when other people have suggestions for you, in our journeys, there are prophets that are in our journeys that come and may recognize something in us or give direction that we may not have thought of. And even when they mention it to us or tell us, we may not be ready to listen to that, but then we may hear it later on in life, or it may come in a different form from a different person. And also it may come from an intuition. But just for our listeners, I'd like to say, when people recognize something in you that may be your gift that you have not recognized yourself, even if you have a journal and you just write that down so that you may reflect on it in a few days, a few hours, even years. And it's very valuable, I find.
I 100% agree. And I think being a little more open is always going to be beneficial. And like that, don't take it like, don't trust it like to the nth degree. Just trust it enough to experiment or make, allow it to influence the thought process that you have around that issue. Because I think we are all quite closed-minded in the way that our minds work. we we have a way of processing information that we tend to stick to, and it can be tricky to shift those gears. One thing that I love about singing is that it is naturally very useful for integrating the left and right side of the brain,
Okay.
which is one strategy for improving problem solving skills and helping our brain move out of kind of an old track of just seeing things one way and allowing you to see things in a broader perspective and maybe get more inspiration in that way.
So a lot of people may not recognize that they're either right or left-brained until they start experimenting with other things. And I know that people who do not like numbers don't like to be in the side of the brain where numbers are. They're not comfortable there. And so it's a whole education, really, isn't it?
It really is. And you know, a lot of us tend to make decisions based on a logic or a linear way of thinking. So when you receive a bit of divine guidance or divine inspiration, and there is no linear way to see that through, you can't do like, you know, a mathematical theorem, A plus B equals C, and QED at the end. You can't anticipate that when you get inspiration like that. And that means that you have to put aside that logical mind and go into the creative part of your mind and go, what if? What if that could work, you know? And that kind of question can be very scary for someone who's very left, you know, sorry, it would be the left brain that is the logical side. So that side of the mind is scared by what if questions. It doesn't want there to be too many question marks. It wants to kind of figure it out at the beginning and then take those steps. But we definitely can't anticipate everything in situations. So I always ask for guidance now for situations, and I trust that that things can work out in many different ways.
Wonderful. So you have someone that someone inspires you on your journey. Would you like to talk about who that is and how that person inspires your journey?
Well, we were talking about the idea of a guru. A guru is somebody that points you back to yourself. So we think that all the answers are outside of us. We go to the doctor for the answer about our health. We go to the teacher for the answer for our education. And a guru is someone who you go to and they say you need to look inward.
Right.
So the teachers that I've had in my life are people that have pointed me back to myself or given me a skill that through the use of that skill, I have found myself. So one of the reasons I do the work that I do is because I meditate. Yes. And my guru for my meditation is a teacher in India called Shashi Dubey, who has passed down mantra meditation to me, which is basically Sanskrit words, so the ancient language of Sanskrit, and they're divine phrases that mean things like if you break them down, they mean like crazy things like, let me be the cucumber that falls from the vine, which basically means let me be able to let go of worldly things and to be in the spiritual, you know, to connect to the spiritual realm. So some of the mantras are crazy, but those mantras gave me the grounding that I needed. They helped me become very centered in myself and helped me to acknowledge spiritual energy and divine energy. So that teacher was very instrumental through another teacher of mine in Ireland, Colóda McComiskey. She is my immediate teacher that I go to for regular mantra sessions. And between them, I had the support system I needed to to start a business that that nobody else had ever told me it could be possible. Who knew that you could help people with their confidence through singing, or, help people with their identity as, singers. And it's been an education that I've been on that's uniquely my journey.
Mm-hmm.
And the teachers that I've had have helped me trust myself.
Mm-hmm. And I think the journey that we're talking about is the journey to yourself, the journey to your heart, the journey where you listen to your soul and resonate. It's almost like a coming home or courting your soul, and your soul is what's connected to the divine, and the soul knows your journey and these intuitions and these people that you have in your life. It's not a coincidence. I mean, they've been set in your path to help you on something. And here's the big thing: your passion. And when you live your passion, that's when your soul radiates, and other people feel that from you. They want to, well, they can feel you. They can feel your presence. And I just think it's just amazing. I just love what you're talking about. It so resonates with me. You're listening to the Rhonda Grant Show right now, whose podcast is being treated with digital audio health by my sponsor, Symatrex. And we are speaking with Aideen today. Let people know how they may reach out to you.
Well, thank you so much, Rhonda. I have a website, and it's confidenceinsinging.com. And you can also get me using my name, aideenriada.com. And I'm on Facebook and LinkedIn and places like that. And I absolutely love connecting with people, and I love having chats with people. So if anyone would like to talk to me and have a conversation about how I might be able to serve them, either relating to singing or voice mentoring, then I would be very interested in helping and would love to serve you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And another person that has influenced your journey has been Elvis Presley. Would you like to
Yes.
speak about that?
Oh my gosh, yes.
Yes.
So I was watching a documentary. I was in London. London was, when we talked earlier about surrender, right? London is the reason that I learned to surrender, because I went to London full of bright lights in my eyes, thinking I'm going to become a singer in London. And nothing of that sort happened because I didn't have the right people around me. But I'm living in this tiny little cottage in a really rough part of London, right? And I'm in this little cottage, and my flatmates are hardly ever there, and I'm really lonely. And I'm watching BBC TV, and a documentary comes on about Elvis. And somehow this documentary had such a huge impact on me. I felt some energy from Elvis reached me and taught me something.
Oh.
I started to feel the energy that Elvis brought to his songs. And I started to recognize the magic that he would weave with his communication.
Mm-hmm.
There was something in the way he would leave a space at the end of a phrase when you could feel his love for the people that were listening. And this is something that I eventually, started practicing myself. It made me, we know this when we're speaking, to leave a pause, let someone take a second, they can digest what we're saying, they can understand what we're saying. And when we sing, if we leave that little pause, it can create magic. Magic. And it's love I feel in the air with him. Love. And when we sing in that way, or when we speak, leaving that space for love to come through in this gap, in this emptiness, then I think there's something very special can happen in the way that we connect energetically with others.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully put. That is just beautiful. Would you grace us with singing one of Elvis Presley's most famous songs, and
I'll
leave
demonstrate.
demonstrate? Yeah.
Let me try.
Yeah. So
Of
it's
course,
Love Me Tender.
Love Me Tender. I can't do exactly Elvis, obviously. So love me tender, love me sweet, never let me go. You have made my life complete, and I love you so. Love me tender, love me true, all my dreams fulfilled. For my darling, I love you, and I always will.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Just beautiful. Can you tell us what, the word is what, are you thinking about when you are singing? Are you thinking about the words? Are you thinking about the love? Because I certainly felt love from your voice. Are you thinking about loving the melody, loving the words? What are you, people want to know, what are you, I want to know, what are, because I sing, I want to know what you are thinking about that makes your presentation over the top, really.
Well, presentation is a good word because it is presence. Number one, being fully present. When we sing, if you're a competent singer, you are holding the energy of many things at the same time. Like that, I know the melody, I know the words, I know my own voice, what it's capable of. We're recording this early in the day, so I was like, oh, what's going to happen? Is my voice ready for this? But when I'm in it, it's not a thought process, it's a presence. It's a presence with this song. And it was for me because Elvis taught me to sing in that way. Elvis's love comes through me. I'm feeling it, like I'm getting emotional now.
Oh yeah.
Because for me, Elvis comes through me in that song, because that song has been a way that I've taught this quality of singing that Elvis taught me, that drew my attention to this ability we have to communicate from the heart through music. So for me, I don't need to think about the melody. I don't need to think about the words. Those are automatic. They're in my, unconscious competence. Yeah. And then it's just being present to that love. If you're a beginner singer, that's going to be trickier.
Yes.
But I actually teach people to sing with the presence as their top priority. And that can carry a singer, even if the voice hasn't been as good, or even if they misspeak a word or anything like that. Because what a listener connects with is that presence, is that love that we bring, is that emotion that we bring, beyond how it sounds. That's why a lot of, like, say, someone like Bob Dylan had this huge following. If you analyze his voice as a singing coach, like I do, you would find flaws all over the place. But his emotion and his presence came through in everything that he sang because he meant it. He meant it from a deep part of his soul, and he connected to people in that way.
Mm-hmm. Talk about presence as if that's an easy thing to be, just be present. But it's very difficult to be present because we have learned to be an automatic. We have learned to, our brains are always looking for the next fix, the next, let me check my Facebook, let me check my Instagram, phone somebody, talk with somebody. And we spend our whole day not in ourselves. And that's what presence is finding that part of ourselves that's true and paying attention to an observing self and being right now, stop the chattering in the brain and all of that. It is a difficult thing to do on top of learning how to sing and the melody, right?
Absolutely. I believe that each of us have values that when we connect with those values, that deep value, like I believe that music has a huge value. And I believe that the voice has value. I believe that love has value. And so in order to bring my presence to a singing or speaking, I connect with the reason that I do it. And when I connect with, this is important. I don't know who's listening to this podcast. I don't know if anybody cares, in a way, because we're putting it out there and we'll get a response later, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people wouldn't want to be on a podcast because they have that internal feeling of, I'm not worth listening to. But I know that what I'm saying, this message that I'm bringing, is worth listening to.
Oh, yes.
So this thing that Elvis taught me, or the fact that, your left and right brain can be improved, integrate better through singing. That's a message that I feel has value, whether I say it or someone else says it. So when I'm helping people to find that position of presence within themselves, I'm asking them to find the thing that they need to speak about that they know matters.
Mm.
So you could be in you could be working in a business or something that actually doesn't really matter to you. That was what happened to me. I was doing image
automatic. Yeah.
Yeah. I was doing what I thought I had a skill at. When I started doing music related work, then it took on a whole new depth of meaning, and I was willing to promote myself because I believed that music was so important that I had to do it. It was like an impulse within me. When you've got a message that matters, it's easier to put your self-consciousness aside. So I wasn't thinking about Aideen when I'm singing. I was thinking about this love that Elvis brings, and this love that I wanted to connect to within me, that I wanted to share with others. So presence does take a self-awareness. It takes a lot of self-acceptance. We need to reduce our self-criticism.
Oh, yes.
For sure. Yeah. But finding that message that really matters to you is one step on that journey as well that can make a big difference, because it's easier to put yourself aside if you know this is important, that I speak about this.
Oh, I see. So the message becomes more important than self.
Yes.
Wonderful. Aideen, I just love listening to all the teaching that you're giving our listeners today. Do you feel that you've been called to your journey?
100%. I've done so many different kinds of jobs, and I somehow believed within myself that it would all make sense someday.
Okay.
And
so that's a teaching right there.
Yeah.
Because some people are struggling right now where they don't know what they want to do, or they know what they want to do, but they're not brave enough to take that first step, because a lot of people worry about what a lot of people may think about them. And that can become more important than them living their true life.
Yes.
It's
It's
just,
so true. I feel like I've been blessed with a kind of a feeling within myself that it would all work out in the end. And I bring this with me.
mm-hmm.
I remember reading a newsletter. A spiritual kind of person wrote a newsletter, and she said, "No one gets left behind. No one gets left behind." And spiritually, to me, that means that the worst people in the world right now, they're
Yes.
not going to be left behind in the great scheme of things. And
Okay.
I need to believe that, because if I don't believe that, I would be in a despondent frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe in finding the understandings within ourselves. The most helpful thing to think, choose that. Choose to think of in a way that allows you to expand and follow your curiosity. So if
Ah.
anyone is in that moment of what do I do? What matters to me? I don't know.
Mm.
I would say follow your curiosity. And I like to research stuff. I'll get on reading a book. I've been spending a lot of time reading books about, health lately.
Mm-hmm.
I read about different things. I read a lot of biographies. I love reading people's stories, because those stories show you those turning points, and that everyone has those difficulties. Elvis had difficulties,
Oh, enormous.
but he was able to transcend that through his music, because he loved the music so much. And I think that each of us has opportunities within our lives to transcend when we find those things that we truly love, that truly matter to us. So be curious and follow like that. I did one workshop in February 2016, and it's gone from there to something I could never have imagined it would be. So
Mm-hmm.
things do work out.
Oh, yes, they work out. The word transcend, we've used that a lot today, even before this conversation, the conversation before that.
Mhm.
There's a time in the Elvis Presley movie where Elvis is singing a song in the 68 comeback special called If I Could Dream. And there is a point in that song that he has transcended. And so there's a break in the song from the chorus to the verse. And he almost, he has to bring himself back to what we call reality, and in order to go back into a verse. And that transcendence is something like that. It's where you lose yourself in your mission, in your purpose, and in this case, in a song, which is putting your whole self aside in order to touch people and let people feel you, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it is a skill. I really believe that singing is a skill, speaking is a skill. Don't think that because you're not good at it right now, that you missed out when gifts were given out at birth. It's
Oh,
not like that. It's
no.
something you can figure out. But not everyone is meant to be in the public eye, or is meant to speak to more than one person at a time.
Oh, yes.
Each of us have a message that matters, and it might only ever be one to one. It might only ever be for you that you write a book. It might only ever be for you that you work with young children. Your place where you're meant to be is yours completely, and it cannot be compared to others, and it is only judged by, in your heart, how right that feels to you.
Mm.
And following the things that feel right to you can bring you on a magical journey, because your service, how you deal with life, it doesn't have to look like Elvis's service that he brought to
No.
life, but each of us matters so deeply, and no one can replace you, Rhonda, and you, the listener. No one can live that life you're living, and no one gets to be you.
Mm-hmm.
Only you get to be you. And you matter. You matter so much, way more than you realize. You matter to me. I believe that you matter to the souls that went before you, your grandparents that loved you when you were born. You matter to people who you met briefly that you said a kind word to. You matter to a teacher that taught you, that saw something in you. You matter to someone that you're going to meet tomorrow that you don't know you're going to matter to. But
Mm-hmm.
please, anyone out there, if you don't realize how much you matter, trust me, I'm so glad that you're listening to this.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
I'm so
yes.
glad that you're receiving something from this conversation, because something that I say or that Rhonda says can be passed on through you. And I'm so grateful that this message that, that we each of us have something important that we can give in the world, and something we can say or something that we can sing. I believe that to me is the message that I've been called to, which was the original question. Have I been called?
Yes. Have you been called?
And I have been called. And you,
Beautiful.
the listener, have given me the platform to do that. If you weren't listening to Rhonda's show, and she wouldn't be doing the show, and I wouldn't have had this opportunity. So just you listening to this right now, that matters very, very deeply to me. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
grateful.
Well, we're grateful for you, Aideen. And I think that when it comes to synchronicities and for the higher self, that there's a reason you're listening to this podcast. There's messages in this podcast that I believe that you've been waiting to hear. And what a great teacher Aideen is. What extraordinary discovery have you found in your life, Aideen?
I think that surrender was so important to me.
Yes.
The discovery that it's a tricky one. I'm a very positive person. I'm a very active, action-related person. I like to do, and get things done. But when things don't work out and you stop trusting yourself, it is a very hard thing. And
Yes.
I've been through that, and I spent 6 months not leaving my house, and my mom's house actually, apart from going to mass once a week. And as you
Yes.
know, I do mantra now as well. My spiritual life is very rich from many different influences. But I had to admit that I did not know what to do,
Mhm.
and I did not know how to take the next step. I was lucky to do a portion of a journey called the Camino de Santiago, which is a pilgrimage.
Yes.
It goes from France all the way to Santiago in
Yeah.
Spain. And I did the portion from the French side, and I walked over the Alps
Wow.
into Spain, and I did it quite badly. I had painful hip, but I did 1 week of walking, and it taught me something. It taught me that just taking one small step gets you somewhere.
Oh,
That
beautiful.
And that has served me so well. And now I see things in those small steps, and I feel overwhelmed sometimes. I've been having a lot of overwhelming times lately that have dented my confidence. But I am endeavoring to take the small steps that I know are obvious, pretty obvious steps, or might be worthwhile steps. You know what I mean? So I'm not losing that momentum forward for too long.
Thank you so much, Aideen, for being a guest on my show. And I think that that last message, taking that one small step, because we think where we are going may not be easy to accomplish, but the one small step will gain confidence in ourselves in order for us to take that next small step. And the one step can be this week and another next week, or one today, one tomorrow. It's at your pace, because as Aideen said, you're going to get there. It's all going to work out in the end, right?
Yeah, it can all make sense in the end.
All makes sense in the end. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being on the Rhonda Grant Show. I've appreciated and I've loved speaking with you and learning from you.
It's an absolute pleasure. I am so grateful to you and to all your listeners. So thank you all for supporting Rhonda, because I'm just so honored to share my heart with you guys. Beautiful.
Thank you. Theme song for the Rhonda Grant Show, Sun on the Water, is composed and performed by my friend John Park Wheeler. This is Rhonda Grant with the Rhonda Grant Show, author of Magical Forces Within, Extraordinary Discoveries in an Ordinary Life, inviting you to look for the magical forces within yourself today and every day. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rhonda Grant Show with your host, Rhonda Grant. If you would like to find out more information about Rhonda and her upcoming guests and the work that she does, go to her website, rhondagrantauthor.com. That's rhondagrantauthor.com.
Digital Audio Health by Cymatrax.